Welcome to Empire Building. I'm Wendy Papazan, and together with my 4 co-hosts, we bring you weekly unfiltered conversations about leadership, growing a big empire, and living on your own terms.
I'm Kimber Lovett-Minkiti. We are investors and wealth builders with over $75 million in combined net worth.
I'm Sarah Reynolds. We are visionaries who built more than 50 businesses with over $122 million in annual revenue.
I'm Tiffany Fikes. We've led thousands of people and do it all while being pretty good moms.
And I'm Seychelle Van Poole. We are your podcast to learn how to build big businesses and even bigger lives.
I am excited this week to be joined with my co-host, Sarah Reynolds. And I am so excited to be talking about, okay, you've done your business plan. Now what? What's the next step?
Yeah, it's going to be a good episode today. You're going to want to get out that notebook and pen, and ideas are praised, execution is worshiped, and we're going to talk about a lot in terms of how you determine executing that business plan. And so it's going to be an awesome episode, as always, with Sarah and Tiff.
You know, the Sarah and Tiff episodes are always
Yes.
best.
Of course.
You know, a lot of people, you've spent all this time, you've gotten your team excited, you've gotten yourself excited about your personal goals, and a lot of people like to just move directly into action. Like, all right, let's get started on what to do. And to Sarah's point, that is important. However, the preparation of making sure you're going to get all the way to the end is what we're going to talk about today. So we are going to talk about using a tool called the SWOT analysis, which may sound like swat a fly, but it's not spelled the same. So
I want to be like, kapow.
yeah.
Every
SWOT.
time I hear SWOT analysis, yeah, SWOT.
Yeah. So it's SWOT, which you'll understand. It's an acronym, and we'll go over that. It's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And we just want to make sure that when you've set a goal for yourself, that you're spending the preparation time for how to execute it, because you may think, oh, I want to get into action immediately, but you'll get into better action. You'll get into action that has longevity, and you'll have spent some time identifying what could go wrong such that you avoid that outcome in your action. So we're going to talk about internal factors, external factors, things you can control, things you can't control. And what I love about this tool, we're going to teach you this around your personal goals. However, we've had an episode in the past where you talk about doing a SWOT analysis on your entire business. We actually did that for one of our retreats one year. The whole retreat
So powerful.
was a huge SWOT analysis on our business as a whole. But today we're going to talk about it personally, like the Sarah SWOT analysis, the Tiffany SWOT analysis, because it is a good framework that you can use in all parts of your life. So, yeah.
I was so excited when I understood that this episode was about personal SWOT analysis, because so many times you hear everyone talk about business SWOT analysis. But the truth is that if you are building an empire, when you're leading, okay, you must do a SWOT analysis on yourself personally, because if you don't see the threats that could come up, if you don't understand the opportunities in your life, right? If you don't truly understand your strengths, your weaknesses, then the likelihood of your goals being accomplished really decreases. And so this is a powerful way to ensure that your goals actually happen.
Yes. And it's also not like the most fun or the easiest thing to do, because this takes asking some really hard questions. You really have to use some serious humility. You've got to have developed some self-awareness, or you've got to at least lean into being willing to start developing some self-awareness right now. And you've got to do this without your self-serving biases, which is some of the hardest things when you realize, wait, I do have a shadow motivation here, or, you know, like it isn't just the way it is. It's just the way I am, that I may need to really face reality.
I mean, studies show that that's the hardest thing for leaders, for us to do, is truly be self-aware and truly assess ourselves, like honestly, without bias, right? An example of that in my own life that I've become very self-aware about and then have been working really hard on growing in this area is something that I learned through reading the book Dare to Lead by Brené Brown. And she talks about how so many leaders really struggle with painting done. And we have these expectations of our people. And because we have done in our minds of how we want something executed or how we want it to come about, I started being more aware that, wow, I need to grow in this area. Like I started seeing myself, I would show up to a special lunch and the room wasn't set up like I had in my mind it was going to be. And then I would get so frustrated with my executive assistant. And it's like, oh, she's supposed to know how I think and know what my dreams are and all these things, like just naturally. And that's an example of something that I was not self-aware of for many, many years and then became self-aware of. And I think back, if I would have done more SWOT analysis personally throughout the years, maybe that would have come up a little bit earlier. And so it's really powerful when we truly assess ourselves.
And we're going to give you some tools if you struggle with that. Like, here's some things that you could consider to just make sure you're seeing yourself. Because if you're just talking to people on your payroll, you very well may not be getting a full look at who you are. But here's the other thing to know about this. It takes time. And you've heard us talk about white space a lot. So hopefully by now you have white space in your calendar. And if you're tuning in for the first time, that's thinking time. That's a consistent time where you're not executing initiatives in your business or initiatives in your personal life, but you're reflecting. It's kind of reflection time. And so this may be something you're going to want to spend a few weeks of your reflection time on. If you're like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to name all my weaknesses in one sitting in 10 minutes. Like, you probably are going to miss a few of those, or your strengths also. So this is something that you need to come back and revisit. So put this in your white space for a couple of weeks. Just pre-plan that, because what we're going to ask you to go through in each of these quadrants is going to take some time. So the first thing I'm going to set up for you is how you write this on a piece of paper, or how you attach it. And it is a quadrant. If you go back to Algebra 1, where there's like an X line across the page and a Y line, and you don't need to know which one's X or which one's Y, but just make sure that you're cutting your paper into 4 quadrants. A line down the middle, and a line down the middle, whichever one you...
Horizontal and vertical, line down the middle. There's 4 boxes on the piece of paper.
There you go. I love a podcast trying to visually describe things. Okay, so you've got your sheet of paper ready. You have a vertical line and a horizontal line. What do you do now, Sarah?
That's right. Okay, so the first part is maybe the most fun part. We're going to talk about strengths. We're focusing on our strengths, okay? Strengths are internal positive aspects that are under your control and upon which you may capitalize in planning. So both strengths and weaknesses in a SWOT analysis are internal, okay? Opportunities and threats, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, are external, okay? But this is internal strengths. So what are your personal strengths? So some questions that you might ask when you're sitting down and you're filling out this quadrant, right? You have strengths written out in the top middle of that quadrant, okay? Of that section of the quadrant, okay? And you're going to ask yourself things like this, like, in what areas do I naturally excel? What skills have I worked to develop? What are my natural born gifts? You know, the things that when other people don't do it like you and you think, what's wrong with them? Isn't that common sense? If you think something is common or easy, okay, what that actually is telling you is that's a gift of yours. You were naturally born with that gift, right? What connections or resources do I have that can help me achieve my goals, right? You might have internal strengths or personal strengths of relationships that are going to help you impact your goals. What are some things, Tiffany, that you would put in this section of your quadrant in terms of your strengths?
My strengths would be fast thinking. Like, I can see patterns and find things really quickly. I speak confidently, whether I'm confident or not. So,
yes.
You know, things like that is what I'm going to put up in my strength quadrant. What about you, Sarah?
Yeah, and our listeners, right, if you've been listening to Tiffany and have gotten to know her, you're like, yes, that's Tiffany, right? Those are her strengths. That is things that are natural to her. We both have in common our confident speak, that's for sure. In terms of the way we say things, you know, a lot of people will say to me, you're not afraid of anything, are you? And I'm thinking, yes, I am. But it's how I come across, right? In terms of relationship building, like deep relationship building comes natural to me. Public speaking is something that is strength of mine. I am not a rapid problem solver, but I am a very good problem solver, but I take my time. I'm a slow problem solver because I do a lot of research. I talk to a lot of people before I make a big decision, and it's something that I'm strong in. Although sometimes it takes me longer to make a decision, it has done well for me to slow myself down in terms of decision making. So those are just a few examples.
Yeah, that's great. And also, don't limit yourself just to the strengths you're using right now. I think that's really important, and that was really important to me. So when I think of what are my strengths, I immediately go to what am I using right now? What am I using in my job? What am I using at my house? And I would discredit strengths that I had in the past that maybe I hadn't been using, like my storytelling or my ability to get people into action, like some things that I just hadn't been using lately. And so don't just think, what am I doing now? But think about who you have been in the past. What are the strengths that you had 10 years ago that maybe dormant because you're not exactly using it in this phase of life or in the role you're serving in your business right now?
That is spot on advice. As you were saying that, I started thinking about some things that I love to create environments that are very warm, and people call it decorating. I call it more creating an environment, but that's not something I'm known for because I don't do it every day. But when someone comes to my house or comes to my office, that's typically the first thing they say is like, this is so homey and warm and productive. And who did this? And I'm like, I did, and it's one of my strengths, but I never talk about it. And so that's a good example. Your strengths have been in you your whole life. And just because your current role or job, you're not using them does not mean that they shouldn't go on here. Okay. Because they're going to help you later on.
Yeah. This is why you've got to come back to it a couple of times, because the first things you're going to write down are the things you use all the time, the things people tell you all the time. It's that third or fourth pass through your strengths where you're going to uncover the storytelling or the environment creation, all those parts of who you are. And you will want those for your analysis because you want to get the most holistic look at yourself with this tool. So, Sarah, what tools, like for people who are struggling with, I don't know exactly what it is.
Yeah, so there's multiple tools that you can lean on for this. So there's the DISC assessment. There's something called the KPA, and that's put on by Keller Williams, but anyone can use it. Strength Finders is also a powerful one. That definitely highlights things that the more what you would call common sense things that you think everyone is like. It will bring up things where you're reading the Strength Finder assessment and you're like, isn't everyone like this? And you're like, realize the things that set you apart, how special you are, because there's 34 strengths per Gallup. Asking family members, talking to coworkers. And all of this will help you think through, like, you want to think through your natural talent, your work experience, hard and soft skills. Like, all of us have hard and soft skills, and those things many times don't get put on strengths. Maybe this is my own issue, but I love us saying put on hard and soft skills as well. Okay, so natural talent, work experience, hard and soft skills, and then talking to different people that know you. I like to talk to people that knew me at different stages of my life too.
Ooh, that's good.
Because you do change. At times, you become what you think you should be in a certain role, right? For me, for well over a decade, I didn't really lead with fun in my leadership. I'm naturally a fun person, but I thought I had to be serious and professional, and especially as a female, I had to dress a certain way. And, but someone that went to college with me, right? That's not their description of me. And so it's talking to different people at different stages of life will help you in this area.
Love that. Okay, so that was the upper left-hand quadrant. So now we're going to go to the upper right-hand quadrant, which is weaknesses. Dun, dun, dun. It's no one's favorite, but it's so important to, again, spend time. And what are the internal negative aspects that are under your control? Like, not that you can control who you are necessarily, but They are within your internal being. So, you're going to be thinking about, what are my weaknesses? You can just answer that question. But then once you only have a couple on there, here's some other questions to keep going. What are my negative work habits and traits? What would other people view as my weakness? That helps your brain unlock new things. Like, what have other people told me are my weaknesses?
To add on to that question, right? It's like when you've done reviews in past roles and past jobs, what did your managers or your leader say they wanted you to work on? For me, it might be running late, right? Like that's an example of something that might come up. And what have other people said, or during your assessments or reviews in previous roles, what were some things that have come up?
What skills do I feel like I need to improve? So that could be your weakness, like time management, to Sarah's example, would be a skill that maybe needs improvement because of that. And this next one I love too. What do I avoid because I lack confidence?
So good.
And then if I think of a time that I quote unquote messed up at work, what was that? What did I do? What was that mess up? And just start peeling back the layers of, okay, what's the reality of who I am? And we all have weaknesses. Like everyone should have as many weaknesses as strengths, or, I don't know, but you're going to have weaknesses. And the more honest you can be with yourself about this, the more powerful you can be prepared, or the more power you can have in preparing how you're going to overcome the opportunities and threats that we're going to talk about in just a little bit. And the Strength Finder is actually a great tool for this, because you can go down to the bottom of your 34. And the value of that is really to find out what's at the bottom. So a great example for me would be empathy is going to be on my weakness side of things. So I need to know that, because I am in a world with people and I need to be aware that that doesn't come naturally to me. And so I need to spend energy not trying to make it better. Like I can't make myself the most empathetic person. We're not trying to strengthen our weaknesses. We're just trying to be aware of them.
When you're aware of them, you also can figure out how to fill the void of them without yourself, actually. So like when I have gone through a similar exercise to this in the past, like if someone were to ask me, what do I avoid because I lack confidence? Like a year or two ago, my answer would have been anything to do with speaking about wealth building. So I teach on every topic, but I'm not the first to sign up to teach or speak on wealth building. And the reason is because my grandparents, blue collar workers, didn't come from a lot of money. My dad is a pastor. Money is just not something outside of giving. Money was just really not taught to me. And so anytime net worth or anything to do with wealth building, or God forbid someone brings up the stock market in front of me, like I almost panic inside. Now I've grown a lot in that area, but like when I realized that I was sort of like running away from teaching my team, the people around me this topic, I called my friend Wendy, and also co-host of our amazing podcast, and said, would you be willing to teach my team? Guess what happens when she teaches the team? I'm there too, right? And so I learned, and this was a few years ago now, but I've seen such tremendous growth in myself from even recognizing it. So it's not like you want to change yourself, but it's like, do you recognize the areas that you are weak? Because like Tiffany said, every single human has weaknesses, right? Gallup, I always laugh when I read something where Gallup talks about the strengths, and because they will not use the term weaknesses. It's your 34th. Empathy is your 34th strength, Tiffany, out of 34. But I love that tip, that's for sure, is looking at the bottom. And a lot of the times that will give us clues.
And you can do the same thing with your strengths, the same tools. Your family, your coworkers can also help, show you where you're weak. I would also say your circle is valuable in this too, because they have no dog in the hunt. They will tell you the truth because they care about you, not because you've asked them as their boss to please tell me something that's wrong with me and I'm going to sign your paycheck tomorrow. There's just none of that dynamic. So, that's a great thing that we sometimes do in the Empire Circle, help each other see strengths, see weaknesses, lean into your circle as well for this, like as one of your tools to help fill your weakness block.
Okay, so the top of the quadrant is now complete. You've got strengths in the top left. You've got weaknesses in the top right. Okay. Now we're moving down to the bottom left. Okay. And that quadrant is opportunities. So opportunities are the external things that are positive. So positive things that help you hit your goals. So what's the current state of the economy? What are the positive things that you're seeing right now in the economy? Is the industry growing? Right? So if your industry is growing, so if you're seeing more people, like we're in the real estate industry, okay, if we're seeing more people buy and sell homes, okay, that's an opportunity for us to help more families, right? What are some skills that you can learn through education? So what opportunities exist that are out there in terms of education, in terms of improvement of yourself, in terms of growth of yourself? How could your network help you hit your goals? For example, Her Best Life Empire Circle, right now, the last time we checked, which was a few months ago, just referrals alone between Empire Circle members paid for itself. Okay. The business that they were getting from the Empire Circle for their real estate business or for their boat selling business or whatever business they're in, that alone was helping them hit their goals. So can your network help you hit your goals? That if you were to tap into it more, could you then have a higher likelihood of hitting your goals? Is there opportunity there? And then what's the opportunity in your schedule? We talk often about big business and big life, not just big business, but big life. What are the opportunities that exist in your schedule that will help you accomplish your goals?
Yeah, when I think of, different things that pop in my head around schedule is like, if you have no kids, that needs to go on the opportunities side of things in your schedule because you don't even realize it. But it is wind in your sails right now because you don't have this other thing that you're thinking about or that's pulling on your schedule. Or your kids are going to school. They've been at home. You maybe have more time or less time. Just what are those boons that you have that are positive in your schedule? Or you've got the most exciting vacation planned in September of next year. That's going on my opportunities because that's going to be energizing to me to know that that's coming. Or I know I'm going to be so ready to go when I get back from that. What are those different things that are external that are the opportunities? Maybe you just hired 2 great people on your team. That's going on there. Maybe you just hired a new leadership person. That's going on there. What are all the positive things outside of you? That's what you want to fill up in this quadrant for sure. So then that leaves us with the T, which is threats.
Dun, dun, dun.
Exactly. Worse than weakness. These are the external factors that put you at a disadvantage for hitting your goals. So it's kind of all the same questions with just a little bit, extra, but what's the current state of the economy? Or what's the negative part of the economy? What part of your industry is retracting, not growing? I would ask this question, just what's the biggest external danger to my goal? If your goal is to hire 10 people or sell 1,000 houses or travel 2 months out of the year, when I think of that big goal, what's the thing that I'm afraid of? What's the biggest external danger? And then also, what would discourage me from hitting my goal? What's the thing that I need to be aware of that will take the wind from my sail very quickly?
A lot of time, especially in small business, there's really not a small business owner that's not a family business owner. Meaning I have found that a lot of threats have to do around our family. And that sounds, when I'm saying it out loud, that sounds very bad, but it's real. Meaning if something were to happen, let's say you have aging parents and one of them falls, they're in a time of their life where falling is something that could happen. That's a threat to your schedule. That's a threat to you achieving your goals. It's not saying you're projecting that those happen, but it's, are you aware of them? And once you're aware, then you can plan, right? And so a lot of times, small business owners, you want to be thinking about things in your environment, things in your family that would impact you not accomplishing your goals.
I love that because, yeah, you're not saying this is for sure going to happen, but you're saying this could happen and I should have a plan or I should think about that. Because if it were to happen, it's going to hijack my goal. You know, in Nashville, a lot of people are in the music industry and they tour. And so, like, from a scheduling standpoint, we have multiple people on our team that husbands tour and travel. And so, like, that goes on their threats. You know, like if they get booked, they could get booked for a job for 2 months gone. And that's awesome. I mean, that's great. That's so exciting. And that's a threat to your personal real estate goals because you no longer have 50% of your family. And so, like, just thinking about all the different things, good or bad, that could happen externally that would create some disadvantage for you to hit your goal.
Okay, so once we have the quadrants filled out, we've got our strengths, we've got our weaknesses, we have our opportunities, we have our threats. Now it's time for us to do something about it now that we recognize what those are, right? And so we got to get to analyzing. So we want to then start thinking about analyzing each of the boxes and planning for what to do about it. So Tiffany, tell us how we do that.
So the first thing you want to just sort of, as you're looking at your squares, we've already talked about the fact that the stuff at the top is internal and the stuff at the bottom is external. But the stuff on the left is going to be something that works for you. And the stuff on the right, you have to acknowledge that could work against you. So just to kind of orient yourself visually to how these boxes interact with each other. So you've got all this information. So what? Number one, you focus on your strengths, not your weaknesses. And what I mean by that is it is proven over and over and over again that your best energy is spent increasing your strengths, not trying to make your weaknesses better. So to Sarah's example earlier, she's not going to go study to talk about and teach her team about financials. She's going to bring in somebody who already knows how to do that because then she can lean into who she is with relationship building and on all of her strengths. So our human nature sometimes is to go to that upper right-hand quadrant and be like, I need to make these into strengths. No, do not do that. That is not what we're doing here. You want to use the left side of the quadrants to support or build scaffolding for the right side. So let me tell you what I mean by that. The left side is what's going to work for you. The right side is what you need to know and have some sort of plan on how you're going to overcome those things. So you may look at your strengths and say, you know what? I'm a really quick thinker. And so that's going to overcome these things I don't know in the right side of my quadrants because I can use that. When I come up against something I don't know, I don't have to go figure it out. I just need to use my rapid problem solving to find who knows that. And think about your strengths. Which of your strengths can you use to overcome your weaknesses and how? Like literally, what's the plan? You don't just look at the 12 or 25 strengths and then say, okay, I'm going to use those for these 12 or 25 weaknesses. No, you're going, all right, I'm not good at time management. That's one of my weaknesses. What on the left side can help me? And you're looking for, oh, I've got a team member who's really good with details. Like I can make sure that they know that they have full permission to ask me 8 times where I need to be, or I'm going to have my personal assistant, or I'm going to have my executive assistant ask me 5 times before I leave so that I'm sure that I'm getting there on time. That's what I mean by scaffolding. If you need to reach to the top, what's the things you can put in place to help support you where you're weak?
I have a kindergartner, right? Lincoln is 5, my baby. And you guys know these exercises kids do where it's like there's words on the left. So let's say it says duck, okay? Duck, cow, horse, all these animals, and they're trying to teach them reading and then they have to take the line from the duck to the actual duck. So they are aware that that's what a duck is, right? In my mind, that's what you're doing. You're taking the left and you're matching it to what part on the left you're going to use to overcome the parts on the right. So you're like, okay, I'm going to take this strength and that's going to help me here. I'm going to take this opportunity and that's going to help me here. And so you're matching to where you're overcoming the things on the right using how God has gifted you and get the opportunities that are in front of you.
And you can specifically look upper left-hand quadrant to the upper right-hand quadrant, strengths to your weaknesses. And then you can look strengths to the bottom right hand to the threats, because you want to also assess how you can use your strengths to minimize the threats that you think might come. So
good.
Each box, go across, to Sarah's point, like connect the dots across both boxes to the other side.
I love it. Okay, so quick tips as you enter into your white space, and you guys are going to take all of this and you're actually going to do it because that's what our listeners do at Empire Building. Just some quick tips is we don't want you to do this quickly. Tiffany said that in the beginning, but we want to reiterate it today. This is not an hour exercise and you're done. Okay, this is typically, it will take time. You're sort of like dating your SWOT analysis until you marry it. And so you want to take time to do that. Include others, right? There is so much power in including other people. They see things in you that you do not see in yourself, and vice versa. You can pour into them as well. You want to put it somewhere you will see it. This isn't something that you want to just put in a notebook that you'll never look at it again. Have it in front of you. You'll see things come up and you're like, I was prepared for that threat. So keep it in front of you. So we want you guys to get out there and build a big, big business. And first, starting with understanding yourself. But do not forget that a big part of why we talk about doing a SWOT analysis on you as a person is because we want you to have that big life. So get out there this week, build a big business and an even bigger life. And if you can, we need some 5-star reviews. We are looking to grow and help others build empires. So if you got something out of this episode that you liked, go ahead and give us a 5-star review. We would love it so much. And thank you for it. And thank you guys so much for listening. Have a great week.
Bye.
This podcast is for general informational purposes only. The views, thoughts, and opinions of the guest represent those of the guest and not KWRI and its affiliates, and should not be construed as financial, economic, legal, tax, or other advice. This podcast is provided without any warranty or guarantee of its accuracy, completeness, timeliness, or results from using the information.